In this session, we will discuss the career of fashion buying and merchandising. So, what are the career options that are available in fashion and apparel industry, and especially what is the scope and what are the qualities required if someone wants to become a fashion buyer or a merchandiser. We start the session with a saying, popular saying, which says that knowledge is always less expensive than ignorance. Knowledge is always less expensive than ignorance. So, we generally think that we need to spend money, time and effort to gain the knowledge. In order to gain knowledge, you need to invest. That is the, so you may feel that many a times that it is expensive to get knowledge, or what is the use. So, but if you see, if we analyze, knowledge is definitely less expensive than ignorance. Suppose an executive or a merchandiser taking a decision without sufficient knowledge, without sufficient information and knowledge and the theoretical backup. So, there are more chances that he or she may end up taking wrong decisions, and these wrong decisions may cost huge amount of losses. So, that way ignorance can lead to a lot of loss and lot of difficulties, and it may put the organization to trouble. Particularly in a business context, knowledge is very less expensive than ignorance. So, we need to have knowledge, we need to have the skills, and we need to have requisite soft skills so as to be successful in our functional nature of the in functional whatever functions you do in our organization. So, if you look at what are the various the options, career options available in apparel and fashion business, there are many types of businesses, types of career options and employment opportunities available in fashion and apparel business. So, many areas of interest, expertise and opportunities are there. So, there are a lot of opportunities, there is a lot of scope for enterprise, so what you call the entrepreneurial scope and expertise that is there. So, there are opportunities in production of fibers and fabrics. So, when we look at the supply chain of the fashion business or apparel business, there are a lot of opportunities available at the level of manufacturing or production of fibers and production of fabrics. So, these are all crucial supply chain activities, and that requires a good amount of skills and good amount of employment opportunities available for the qualified people. Similarly, you can look at manufacturing of apparels, garment manufacturing, that again gives a lot of scope for career opportunities for the people. So, let us see that garment manufacturing can also offer huge amount of employment opportunities for the people who are qualified and who are skilled. Similarly, there are a lot of opportunities available in distribution and retailing. So, retailing and distribution offer huge amount of opportunities, career opportunity. You can be the store manager, you can be back-end operations, merchandising, buying, etc. So, they are all crucial functions, and people with right kind of qualification and knowledge will definitely can look forward to a great career in these areas. And coming to the advertising and promotion. So, advertising and promotion again offers very interesting and challenging career options, and these are available in the case of the fashion business as they are available in other business areas. In fashion business and also apparel business, these are again a very challenging task. How do you promote the business and how do you advertise your business? And particularly these are all there are challenges in this business like short life cycles, longer lead times, and there is a product obsolescence risk. In view of all these things, how do you advertise and how do you promote your business is again becomes a very challenging task. So again, there are huge opportunities available in this area, and if you study the successful retailers, then it is very clear that largest rewards usually go to the merchandisers and buyers. So out of all these career options that we have discussed in the fashion business or the apparel business, see, most of the rewards would go to the merchandisers and buyers, because that is the crucial task, that is the challenging task. The merchandising and buying can make or break the store. So obviously the risks are also higher and rewards are also very high. If you are successful, yes, you will get huge rewards. They definitely go to the merchandising and buying team. So this is a very important task. Some fashion businesses succeed with the smaller stocks. Some need larger assortment, and some work on small markups, and some need larger ones. Some turn their stock many times, and while others may turn the stock slowly. And while others succeed with less turnover and frequently with lower markdowns. Some spend much of money for advertising and others spend less, but none succeed without the fashion merchandisers who respond to the need of their customers. So it means that there are different types of retailers. Some retailers may succeed with, say, less amount of markup. That means they work on less markups, maybe volumes are bigger, particularly type of discount stores and all. And there are other retailers who work on large markups, maybe their volumes are not so great as the discounters, but still they make good amount of revenue because the markups are high. So, and there is also a possibility that some work with less turnover of the stock. Stock turnover is less, slowly turning over into sales. But in case of some of the retailers, the stock is greatly turning into the sales. The turnover is high. So maybe, for example, if you see a women's wear and the stock turnover may be higher. But if you look at, say, for formal men's wear, the stock turnover may not be that high, but still they also succeed. So again, some people may succeed with less markup, and some may succeed with large markup. So, but nevertheless, in spite of all these variations in retail business, so nobody will succeed without the successful role of merchandisers and buyers. So irrespective of whatever be the type of retail industry, maybe it is a discounter, maybe it is a hypermarket, maybe it is a specialty store, or it can be a boutique, or it can be an electronic specialty good store, whatever it is, they cannot succeed without the merchandisers and buyers. They play a crucial role for the success, especially in case of fashion and apparel business. So they need to have, any retailer, if they want to succeed, they need to have highly skilled and knowledgeable buyers as well as merchandisers. So that is a must. So it underlines the importance of buying function. It underlines the importance of merchandising function in a retail business house. So because of these reasons, the merchandisers and buyers, they get good amount of rewards and returns compared to the other career options and other career available in the retail business. So now, if you want to be successful, if a person want to be a successful merchandiser, or if you want to be a successful buyer, what are the qualities that are required? What it entails to be a successful merchandiser and a buyer? What are the qualities required to be a successful buyer. So let us look one after one, and first you need to be assertive. A successful buyer especially need to be very assertive. That means he needs to put his views, his planning, his opinion, his judgment assertively to his subordinates, to his superiors, as well as other relevant people in the organization. So he has to be an assertive person. If once he is convinced of his analysis, his decision, and his opinion and how to go about it, he should be assertively express the same and convince the team members, convince the top management, convince the peer group. Similarly, entrepreneurial. So in entrepreneurial, one has to see the opportunities available for business. How can you grow the business? How can you do a good business? So what are the opportunities available? So particularly for a buyer, there can be a lot of opportunities available in terms of the resources, in terms of the product availability in the market. There can be you can suddenly spot a merchandise which has got a huge selling potential, especially given the target segment of the store. So the merchandiser or the buyer should be able to see the opportunity and catch on it. So that is why it requires entrepreneurial skills and ability to take calculated risks. So that is also part of the entrepreneurialness of the person. So one should be entrepreneurial if he wants to be a successful buyer or a successful merchandiser. So then comes street smartness. So the market is very dynamic, and the buyer needs to deal with various types of people, various buyers, vendors, manufacturers, and wholesalers, etc. And he has to be street smart in handling all these people. He has to act smartly and negotiate accordingly and get his business done. So it requires that the buyer is a street smart. And then self-confident. So self-confidence is a must for any successful person. For anybody who is to be successful in life, we need self-confidence. And naturally, it is very much required and essential in case of a buying or merchandising. So without being self-confident, the buyer is susceptible to make mistakes. Without being self-confident, a merchandiser is likely to make mistakes in his planning. So when you make self-confident decisions, when you make self-confident planning, it is more likely that you will be successful. So self-confidence is very much required for buying and the merchandising jobs. So one need to be self-confident if one has to be a buyer or a merchandiser. Then comes the comfortable in making decisions of significant dollar magnitude. Especially in case of buying, the buyer needs to take decision to purchase merchandise in large volumes. So these may run into lakhs of rupees. These may run into even crores depending on the store volume. So when you are taking a decision to purchase, to buy merchandise of that magnitude, it requires the confidence, it requires the comfortness with which you take the decision. So you have to take confidently, and you should have comfortness in taking those decisions of huge amount of money involved. So this, without being comfortable, and a buyer cannot take right decisions. If you have to take right decisions, he has to be comfortable and he has to be confident. So that means decision making should be at ease. He should be at ease to take these decisions of making purchases worth lakhs and crores of rupees. So that is very essential for a buyer. And action oriented. So particularly for buying, You cannot go on sourcing, talking and all, and finally, but ultimately action is required. That means you need to actually buy the merchandise. You need to actually place the orders. You need to actually see that the merchandise is delivered to the stores. So there is action front involved, and the action orientedness is very much important in case of buying as well as planning. So without being action oriented, things cannot just happen on their own. So action is very much required. Similarly, analytical skills are very much required. So for a buyer and merchandiser, you need to be a good analyzer. That means you need to have good analytical skills if you want to be a good merchandiser or a good buyer. So data is coming from different sources. From data and information is available from customers, from your distributors, from your vendors, from your wholesalers, manufacturers. So the data and information that is coming from all these sources has to be analyzed with right perspective and using right kind of tools. So it can be a quantitative data analysis, it can also be a qualitative data analysis techniques. So the buyer or the merchandiser should be adept in analytical skills. So this is very, very essential of a buyer. So in order to take right decisions, analytical skills are very, very essential. Then next is at ease with numbers. So that at ease with numbers. So the merchandisers and particularly the buyer should be comfortable in basic calculations. The basic calculations of division, plus, minus and multiplications, they have to be very, very comfortable in taking that. So when a buyer is negotiating with a, say, a supplier, when he is negotiating with a vendor, the vendor prices you should be able to convert quickly into the selling prices in the store and see whether he can buy the merchandise at that price and sell in the store, and he can still make right kind of margins or not. So he has to quickly do all these calculations while negotiating with the buyer and see and take a right decision whether to buy it or not. So but that requires a good ease with numbers and good ease with calculations. So that is anyway is basic requirement of the buying function. And the next thing is deal effectively with many different types of people. So the buyer especially is going to deal with many different types of people in his day-to-day functioning. He has to deal with vendors, he has to deal with manufacturers, he has to deal with wholesalers, and similarly he has to deal with his peer buyers in the market and buyers working with other retailers, and he has to deal with the merchandisers and his superiors, his team members, his subordinates, staff members. So and beyond all these things, he also needs to be in touch with the customers. So finally he has to deal with all these people effectively. That means he should have a good people handling skills, managerial skills and people handling skills. So when he has good people handling skills and managerial skills, then he can be an effective buyer. Then comes understand what is fashion and what is convention. That means a buyer or merchandiser cannot be successful without having a proper knowledge about fashions, proper knowledge as to how the fashions move, fashion movements, how the fashions spread in the society, what are fads and what are classics. So what is a fashion and what is a convention? So what is a fashion and what is not a fashion? So what is coming in and what is continuing and what is going out? of fashion. So you have to able to distinguish and differentiate. A thorough understanding of fashion and how it moves, fashion cycles, is very much required for a buyer and a merchandiser, without which simply they cannot be a fashion buyer or a merchandiser in the business. So then comes, they also cultivate sixth sense about fashion direction. So when the merchandisers and buyers, they are in the fashion business, and they should know in what direction the fashions are moving. So how the fashions are changing, in which direction the fashions are changing. If so, then what is expected in the coming seasons. So the ability to forecast the things or use the forecasts available. So they should have a sixth sense, a gut feeling of how things are going to change, how fashions are going to change. So this kind of sixth sense or the gut feeling is very, very important if a buyer has to be successful. So that enables buyer or the merchandiser to be successful in their day-to-day functioning. So a thorough understanding of fashions movements and fashion cycles and fashion directions is a must. Then comes the next quality that is required is dedication. So you should have thoroughly dedicated to your job. A buyer or a merchandiser should have 100% dedication to the job, and they should love the challenge, because as we discussed, the fashion or apparel business has a lot of challenges, and a merchandiser or a buyer should love the challenges involved. So when you love the challenges involved, then automatically we will have developed 100% dedication. So love for the job is very much essential if a person has to be successful in their jobs. So this dedication also requires that willingness to sacrifice personal time during evenings and also during weekends. So these jobs are very challenging, and you need to respond quickly and immediately to the challenges as and when they arrive. As and when you face them, you need to solve them. So these because it requires that the merchandisers and buyers should be ready to sacrifice their evening time if required, and if required their weekends also they have to keep working. So that means they should always be willing and love to sacrifice their evening times as well as the weekend times, and they should be satisfied whenever they are triumphant. They should, when they are triumph, when they have success, when they have seen the success, they have to be satisfied, and they should have optimism even after temporary setbacks. So optimism in the case of even when you face setbacks is required, so that you can bounce back and start working and towards success. So that is the very much essential for a person to be sustaining sustaining his ability to face the challenges. So satisfaction at times and optimism in case of setbacks would ensure that a person is dedicated to his job, and once you have love for the challenge, for the job, naturally you will have 100% dedication, and you will be ready to face any kind of challenges. So that is what is required for a person to be a successful buyer or a merchandiser. Next, what is required is enthusiasm, undying enthusiasm about his or her job. Undying enthusiasm about his or her job is the key to building successful career. It is key to building successful career. Enthusiasm extends to all aspects of work. That means you love and you are enthusiastic about your work. So once you love and you have enthusiasm for your job, you would naturally excel in that. Your enthusiasm will make you to excel in whatever you do. It will naturally lead to a successful functioning. So enthusiasm is a must. So enthusiasm and love for what you are doing would always drive you to excel in that. So that is why I think it is always better you develop enthusiasm and love for the job you are doing, or you do a job which you love and which you have enthusiasm. So that will definitely lead to an excellence in what you do. So that is why whoever wants to be a good buyer or a merchandiser should have or should develop undying enthusiasm and love for the job they are doing. Once you have this, it will automatically drive you to excellence, drive you to the successfulness. So, and it is very important, it is extending to all aspects of your job. So, you cannot say this is buying, I love this part of that buying function but not that part. I love this aspect of buying but not the other aspect. So, that means when you have a career option, when you have a job on hand, all the functions that are associated with that job functioning should be taken care, and you should have enthusiasm for all those things, all those aspects. So that is also again very, very important. Then comes the honesty. So honesty is very, very important quality required for merchandisers as well as the buyers. Dealing with others in a business situation is always easier and more fulfilling when all parties perceive that they trust each other. So when you are dealing with the different kinds of people and parties in the business, like you are dealing, a buyer is dealing with the vendors, a buyer is dealing with the manufacturers. So they are negotiating, they are dealing, making business deals. So when all this is happening, so when everybody perceives that the other parties are honest, then it becomes, the entire process becomes very easy and very effective and very successful. So there should be a honesty in what you do, and that when others feel and others realize that you are a honest in your dealings, then your business dealings would become meaningful and they are trustworthy, and naturally that will lead to the success and excellence in what you are doing. Maintain honesty and integrity in the very act of buying, and give every vendor and an item to a chance to succeed. That means whenever you are making a purchase, whenever you are making a buying, there is always a suspicion. People are likely to suspect any financial purchases, any buying activity. So there is always a scope for some dishonesty. So there is always some suspicion. So the buyer needs to maintain highest level of integrity, highest level of honesty in dealing with these purchases and buying part. And this honesty should also extend not only to the actual purchase or buying process, but also that a buyer should be honest in giving equal opportunities to all the sources available in the market. You should give opportunity, you should see a new source of merchandise without any suspicion, without any less feeling. So that means you have to give them a fair chance for the evaluation and for doing business. Similarly, a new merchandise appearing, you should give a fair chance to consider that for purchase. So that means you should not simply strike them off because they are new. You should not simply strike off them just because maybe you have some dislike for that merchandise or for dislike for that resource, but because you are buying for your customers, and it is customer orientation that is required when you are making the buying function. So you have to have a honest customer orientation, and you should honestly give all the opportunities available in the market for sourcing a equal platform. A honest buyer would view potential new sources with open mind. So that means any new source coming up in the market should be given a fair chance and it should be dealt fairly. You cannot trash it out simply because it is new. Then the buyer is not honest. So the buyer would be honest. A honest buyer would definitely give any new resource a fair deal. Then they also must have honest in relation to their customers in the area of quality and price. So the honesty should extend to the quality and the price that you are giving to your customers. You cannot cheat customer by pricing it high for the quality and material you are giving. So that means you are being dishonest. The customers are being rather cheated. So which is again, it would affect the business in the long run. So you cannot hide it for a long, and the moment customers realize, then your business will erode. So that is why you should be honest with respect to your price and quality. So because there is a natural tendency that customers associate price with quality. If the price is high, they assume that quality also must be high. So, and if they pay high price and if they find later on the quality is not that good to justify the price, then they feel cheated, and that would affect the business. So a buyer has to be honest while fixing the price. He has to see in relation with the quality of the product. So that is very much required. Their honesty must also extend to an ability and willingness to purchase fashion goods, which might not cater to their own personal preferences, but which they recognize as styles that are liked and wanted by the customers. So a buyer is very, very honest only if he purchases the merchandise with customer orientation. He should buy what his customers like. He should buy what his customers would prefer. He or she should buy what the customers of the store need. They cannot put their personal preferences, their personal likes, their personal dislikes, their personal needs above the customer needs, customer wants, and customer likes and dislikes. So he has to put himself above his personal likes and dislikes, and he should completely wear the hat of his store customer and think like a store customer in the buying activity, because he is buying for his store customers. He is not buying for his personal use. He is not buying for his family, but he is buying for his customers. So customer orientation is a must. A honest buyer would always put the customer's hat and customer's shoes and then buy the merchandise. So that is very much required. Yes, that only leads to success and effectiveness in the buying function. Cut. Yeah, the next quality that is required for to be a successful merchandiser and buyer is awareness. So there should be a constant alertness. So the more quickly trends rise and fall, the more quickly a merchandiser must be aware of the cycle and act on it. Keen awareness of the world around them. So that means the merchandisers and buyers should have constant alertness. They should keep observing what is happening in the marketplace, what is happening with respect to the consumer buying pattern, and how the fashion scenarios are changing. So that means that they have to keep their antennas up all the time. They need to keep watching, observing, so then reading. So all their sensory antennas should always look for any significant change that is happening in the marketplace, any significant change that is happening with respect to fashion changes, fashion scenario. So the constant alertness is very, very required for a successful buyer and or a merchandiser. So they have to keep observing, they have to be alert to spot anything that is interesting change, interesting development that is happening with respect to fashion, with respect to the competition, and with respect to the sourcing trends, etc. So the alertness is very much required on merchandiser or buyer's part. So another quality that is again a very important quality is stamina. So they need to have good stamina. The long and hard hours of the job require a great amount of physical stamina. A great amount of physical stamina. Maintaining good physical health, ability to work long hours, ability to face long hours of working is very much required if somebody wants to be a successful merchandiser and a buyer. So anybody who wants to pursue the career of a buying career or a merchandising career, it is essential that they should have a good physical stamina. They need to maintain good physical health, good physical stamina, so that they can effectively be on their job for long hours of the work. So it basically requires maintaining good health. Good health anyway is required for anybody, and more so for buyers and the merchandisers, because they need to be on the job for long hours and face the consequential physical stress and even other stress. So apart from the physical stamina, they also need to maintain mental stamina and emotional stamina. So mental stamina is required to cope up with the pressures of the job. There are a lot of pressures, a lot of challenges, and a lot of problems that you have to solve on a day-to-day basis. So it requires that the merchandiser or the buyer has good amount of mental stamina, and they also need to have a great amount of emotional stamina. Emotional stamina is very, very important to face the setbacks, to face the problems, especially the setbacks, and to face some situations where you are not so successful. And you learn lessons and come out and face challenges again and be successful, come back again successful. So in order to have this kind of ability, it requires a good amount of the emotional stamina. So that means stamina has three dimensions. That means physical stamina, mental stamina, and emotional stamina. So physical stamina is arriving out of good health, good physical fitness, so that you are able to cope up with the long hours of the work. And mental stamina is to face the pressures, to face the tensions, to face the challenges and to face the problems of the job. And emotional stamina is to face the setbacks and to face the defeats, learn from them and to come back. So that is what the emotional stamina is important. So anybody who wants to be anybody who wants to take up the career of a merchandiser or the buyer, they need to develop their three-dimensional stamina, that is physical, emotional and mental stamina. So that is very, very required. Then comes the important skill that is called decision making skills. Decision making skill. So taking decisions quickly and decisively and is not afraid of the risk. So that means to be successful in their job, the merchandisers and the buyers need to take decisions. They need to take a lot of decisions in due course of their job. So when the decision making is more in the decision making. It is more important that you take timely decisions. It is very essential that you take a timely decisions so that you are still able to a situation where you are going wrong, but you are able to solve the situation. And taking timely decision is very, very essential. That skill is very, very essential. Similarly, take decisions decisively. So you are not going back and forth on the decisions. So once you have taken decisions, you take firmly and stand by the decision. Before taking decision, you analyze the things, you evaluate various options available, and then take. Once taken, there should be no wavering on that. The decision, whatever you take, it is taken decisively and not afraid of the risk. So if the merchandiser or the buyer is afraid of the risk, he will never be able to take any decision. He will never be able to take decision in the right time. So his decision making skill is greatly hampered if he is afraid of taking risks. So that is the why one should always take timely decisions, and you should never be afraid of taking risks in the decision making. So that is very, very important. So the moment somebody starts afraid of taking the risks, then decision making is greatly hampered. So developing good decision making skills is very much required if somebody wants to pursue the career of a merchandiser or a buyer. So want to be a merchandiser, want to be a buyer, please develop your decision making skills. Then comes mathematical ability. So when you say mathematical ability, it does not necessarily mean that you should have great mathematical skills. You have to learn higher mathematics. No. What it means is that one should be comfortable. One should be comfortable in the regular calculations of multiplication, division, minus, plus, etc. So it does not require you to solve integration problems and differentiation problems and so on and so forth. So it only requires that you do your basic mathematics. You can properly do your basic maths, and that is what it is required. Mathematical ability to do basic maths. So you should be adept in analyzing the information presented in numerical terms and translating that into information into merchandising strategy. So while a lot of information is coming to the merchandisers and buyers, a lot of data is coming to merchandisers and buyers. So whatever data and information that is coming to the merchandisers and buyers, they should be able to quickly analyze and convert that into a merchandising strategy. That means what kind of merchandise to buy, what kind of assortments to buy and offer to the customers based on the information and the data received and based on the analysis of the same by them. So that is very, very required. Vendor prices are quickly translated into store prices in buyer's mind. That means the basic mathematical skills would enable buyer or merchandiser to quickly translate vendor prices into selling prices in the store, and then analyze whether is the price is okay for the store merchandisers, whether the store customers would be able to buy the merchandise at that price comfortably or not. That can be clearly be analyzed. So that is why the mathematical skills are important. So the ability to do basic maths and analytical skills are always required if you want to be a successful buyer or a merchandiser. Then another important quality that is required is communication skills. Is your communication skills. Constant contact with people, vendors, sales associates, customers, etc. The buyer is always in contact with the people, particularly with the buyers, with the vendors, manufacturers, and wholesalers. And he is always in touch with customers. He is in touch with his subordinates, his superiors, his peer group. So he has to deal with all these people. He needs to communicate what is his plan, what is his buying strategy, what is his buying plan to these people. So in that process, having good communication skills is very, very essential. If you have good communication skills, you will be able to communicate your ideas, you will be able to convince the people about your ideas, and you will be successful. So without proper communication skills, nothing can happen. So it is very, very essential to have good communication skills. Being able to communicate effectively with all those people is vital in doing job well. That means if you have to do your job excellently, if you have to do your job successfully, if you have to do your job effectively, you need to have good communication with all the people that you are doing as part of discharging your duties. So develop good communication skills. So, and good communication skills involves the oral presentation. How do you talk orally? How do you communicate orally? How do you convince by oral communication is one set. The another can be a written communication skills. How do you communicate? How good are you in your language? How good are you in your language skills? And how effectively you can use your written language skills to communicate. So these are all again very, very important. So you need to articulate merchandising ideas and concepts. So when a merchandiser or buyer has to convince the management about their plans, their merchandising plans, their buying plans, so they need to communicate. They need to communicate and convince the management, convince the superiors to get the required budget, to get the approval for the merchandising plans and the buying plans. So that requires good communication skills. So communication, so if you want to become a buyer or a merchandiser, yes, become a good communicator. Develop your communication skills. Develop superb communication skills if you want to be an excellent buyer. Then another important, particularly for buyers, is negotiation skills. Negotiation skills. So the buyer is dealing with vendors. Shrewd and persuasive buyer, the more shrewd and persuasive is a buyer, the more value for money he can get out of the negotiations with vendor. So buyer's knowledge is a key element in the negotiation. That means a buyer need to always negotiate. A buyer need to always negotiate with his vendors and with his manufacturers and also wholesalers. So negotiation of the prices, negotiation of the terms of purchase, to get better terms, to get better price, to get better payment period, to get better cash discounts. So it is all required to negotiate. This negotiation will be better if the buyer has a good negotiation skills, and negotiation will be better when buyer has a good knowledge about the product and its prices. Good knowledge about the product and its prices. So how the product is priced, how the product is costed. So the costing information of the product that he is going to buy would enable the buyer to get the best deal from the supplier. If the buyer is ignorant about the costing information of the product that he is buying from his resources, from his vendors, then he will not be an effective in his negotiations with the vendor. So the buyer should always get information about the product, particularly how the product is costing, how the costing is done, what are the cost elements. If the buyer has this information, then his negotiations with suppliers, vendors and manufacturers would be very, very effective, and he can get best out of the negotiations. So particularly if somebody wants to be a buyer, you be a good negotiator, you develop good negotiation skills, then you can be a successful buyer. Then comes managerial skills. A buyer is a manager before he is a buyer, because he has a team, he has to manage the team, he has to get the work done from his team, he has to motivate the team, he has to inspire the team. So it all requires good managerial skills. Teamwork, effective management skills are essential for the buyer or a merchandiser. Fair, tactful and impartial manager will earn respect of his or her staff. That means as a good manager, as a good team player, one has to be fair and tactful towards all his subordinates, all his team members. Every team member should pursue the manager or the team leader as a fair person. He is not impartial, he is fair. So the moment that respect is earned, he would be a successful manager, successful team leader. So on the other hand, if you are not able to convince the team members, if you are not able to communicate to the team members that you are a fair person, you don't have partisan attitude, you don't favor or unfavor to some of the team members, you are treating everybody equally based on the merit, then everybody will see you as a fair and good leader and good team leader. So the moment you are being perceived as a partisan, you are favoring some people without being merit, then teamwork will collapse. So that is why a buyer or a merchandiser should have good managerial skills so that he can manage his teams effectively towards success. Then comes the another topic is stores merchandising policy. So what is stores merchandising policy? See, merchandising policy of a store is decided by the top management of the store. So what type of merchandise the store should buy and keep it in the store for sale. So it is again related to the fact that what type of a store it is. Is it a discount store? Is it a upmarket department store? Or is it a specialty store? Or it is a boutique? Or if the store is a hypermarket? So what is the store and how the store is positioned and who are the store customers? So keeping these things in mind, the store will prepare a merchandising policy for the store. A merchandising policy for the store. So this merchandising policy for the store would guide the decisions of the merchandisers and buyers to plan and buy the merchandise as prescribed in the merchandising policy of the store. So the policy, essential elements in establishing merchandising policy is as follows. So one is price and price range. So what kind of price range offerings the store is going to offer? Whether it is high prices or moderate or low or the very lowest. So again it all, as we discussed, depends on the positioning of the store. So the policy they may decide, yes, we will offer high prices, merchandise with high prices. Maybe if it is a upmarket department store or a special merchandise specialty store or a boutique, maybe they decide that high priced merchandise will be sold in the store. But if it is a discount store, maybe they may go for a low priced merchandise. So it depends. So the policy will decide. The policy, while formulating, the top management is formulating the merchandising policy for the store. They will decide, one is what type of pricing they will be opting for that. Then second one is quality. Quality standards for the merchandise. Whether you will offer finest available merchandise to the store customers, or unspecified quality, or imperfects. Suppose if you are a factory outlet, or if you are a highly discounted store, maybe you will look at some imperfect, you may look for surplus, etc. But if you are a upmarket department store, your merchandising policy may say that you will offer finest available quality to your customers. So your merchandising policy would say that yes, we will offer finest available quality merchandise to our store customers. So that is clear. So depending on again on the positioning of the store, so they may be deciding what kind of quality merchandise to offer to the store customers. So that will be prescribed and incorporated into the merchandising policy. Then comes the breadth and depth of the assortment. Whether you follow narrow and deep assortments, or you want to follow broad and shallow assortments, would again depend on what kind of a store you are. Suppose you are a upmarket or if you are a department store, then probably a departmental store merchandising policy may would say that yes, we will offer merchandise with broad and shallow assortments. On the other hand, if it is a specialty store, they may decide that the policy, as a policy, they will decide they want to offer narrow and deep assortments. Narrow and deep assortments. So again, depending on the store and store type and store's positioning, the policy may decide what type of merchandise assortments to offer to the store customers. The next element of the store policy is exclusivity. Exclusivity. So whether exclusivity is emphasized or not emphasized, again store will decide, the policy will decide. So if the store wants to have some kind of exclusive merchandise to offer to the store customers, then they may buy some merchandise, or they may offer some store brands or private labels which would be available only in that particular store and not in other stores. So that would offer some exclusive merchandise for the store customers, which is available only in this store or not available in other stores. So that will that means the whether the store wants to offer private labels or not would again follow from the merchandising policy. Then we have fashion leadership. Fashion leadership. So whether a store wants to be a fashion leader, or whether the store wants to be a fashion follower, or whether the store wants to be a fashion laggard, would again be as per the policy, and again depending on how the store is positioned. So if it is a specialty store or it is a boutique upmarket department store, they may decide that yes, store want to be a fashion leader. That means anything new fashion, new trend coming up, the store would go for that. Store would stock merchandise belonging to the trend and fashion. So if the store is a discount store, probably it is like a fashion laggard. So they will be offering all these new fashions and trends when they are about to decline. So in the time frame, they will be offering the merchandise at a later day, so at a later time. So again, it would be decided by the merchandising policy of the store depending on the store's positioning and customers. Then comes maintenance of basic stock. Whether store would maintain basic stock or not. So there can be options, usually in stock, always in stock, basic stock is not important. So depending on what kind of a store you are, the store may decide that it always keep some basic stock available to its customers, or it may decide that basic stock is not important and they may don't want to keep. For example, if it is a boutique, basic stock doesn't make any sense. So they decide that basic stock is unimportant, not required. So if it is some discount stores type of thing, maybe they think that basic stock is more important for them. The customers would be looking for that. So they may keep good amount of basic stock. So it all depends on the store its positioning, its customers. So, like this, depending on all these parameters and all these elements, the merchandising policy of a store would be decided. So, the merchandising policy of the store would cover all these elements. So, and based on the merchandising policy of the store, the merchandisers would plan their assortments, the buyers would make their buying as per the merchandising policy of the store. So, that way merchandising policy of the store is a very essential and very guiding document for the merchandisers and buyers of the store.